Now, if you were crafting a plan to fight racism in your city government, and someone raised their hand at a staff meeting and was like, you know what we think we need to do? You know what is the best possible plan to fight racism in our government? We need to do segregation. That is the only way that we can fight racism in the government, is by doing segregated training for our employees, where white employees get one training and employees who are not white get a completely different training. That is the only possible way to fight racism, is through segregation and additional racism. If that happened, would you think that was a little bit crazy? Well, of course that's happening in the city of Seattle right now. That's actually been happening in the city of Seattle for months. We know that the city of Seattle has been segregating their white employees off to do specific kinds of training. They've actually asked their white employees to give up their vacation days specifically to do this kind of training, and we know that going back months. Now Chris Rufo is on the case again, uncovering new documents showing that the city of Seattle has only continued to double down on this crazy, absurd idea of fighting racism with racism. He sent out this tweet the other day. 3 Seattle area government agencies are now holding racially segregated diversity training programs. I've obtained exclusive whistleblower documents that expose this shocking new policy, which should be described as segregation for social justice. Now, I want to correct Chris, because we know this is not a new policy. I uncovered emails months ago from City of Seattle employees that were basically being told that white employees get one training and other employees get another kind of training. So it is not remotely shocking to me that this has now bled into other government agencies. But we're going to take a look at what Chris has found, because frankly, it is actually really shocking and a little bit disturbing, if I'm honest. And we're going to talk about what that means. But before we do that, folks, I have a goal, and I need your help. My goal is to get 100,000 subscribers on this channel by Election Day, just a few short weeks away. I'm so close. I'm so close. I need about 1,200 more as of the recording of this video, so I think we're going to make it, but I do need your help. What I need you to do right now is take a look below the video. And I want you to see if you need to hit that little red subscribe button to subscribe to my channel, either because you're new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, or because you think you're subscribed and YouTube has made that decision to unsubscribe for you. But just do a little double check, and if you feel so inclined, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, which apparently helps in actually keeping you subscribed to my channel. Leave a comment, let me know what you think, share this out with your friends. I really appreciate it, and I know we're going to reach that 100,000 goal just to spite YouTube and their ongoing constant shenanigans. All right. Let's read what Chris Rufo has found. The King County prosecutor recently implemented a new policy requiring employees to sign an equity and social justice pledge, and assigned continued training for white employees who must accept responsibility for their own racism and question the white power structure. And he's got proof here, guys. Let's look at his receipts. He's got this email out from prosecuting attorney, HR, okay? Good afternoon. For those of you who would like to be able to join our virtual talking circle this week, you have heard Don blah, 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 whatever. To that end, the PAOSJESJ team has drafted the policy in hopes that positive changes within our government will increase belonging and opportunity for those most impacted, and also spur changes for the better in how we serve our communities. Please read, sign, and return the attached policy. So that's not intimidating for employees at all, is it? Let's keep going. This is from Heidi Parkington. I don't know how to pronounce that name. Heidi has to say, good afternoon. We recently had the honor and privilege to hear from many of our colleagues of color regarding their lived experiences, both in and outside of the workplace. We appreciate their courage and willingness to share their experiences with us to help move the needle on these issues. These conversations and state of our world have left white people wondering what we can and should do. We are also challenged to do our part in breaking down systemic racism institutions that we have benefited from at the expense of others. So this is basically a white lady saying, I feel really, really guilty about being white, and you should feel guilty about being white too. We are asking all of our white employees to please read and watch the articles and videos below. This will take approximately 2 hours. Okay, do you know how expensive it is to ask all of your employees of any persuasion to do anything for 2 hours? We're talking about thousands of dollars here. Thousands of dollars of taxpayer money that the city of Seattle has decided is best used by having their employees watch videos about Reconstruction in America, explained the racial wealth gap, racism in America, and, of course, our favorite, a presentation by Robin DiAngelo, and they didn't even spell Robin DiAngelo's name correctly. They didn't even spell the woman's name correctly. You can tell that she is such a massive influence that they did not spell her name correctly. I digress. Most of us were intentionally not taught these historical facts at school in efforts to whitewash U.S. history and gloss over issues with racism in America. Not being taught the true history of racism in America makes it appear as if racism magically stopped after the civil rights movement. No, us white people, we've been racist all our lives, and we're gonna be racist until the day we die. I don't know why we haven't figured this out before the last couple months. Nonetheless, these issues have persisted in many institutions, specifically the criminal justice system, playing a large role in perpetuating these issues. This is why it is important that we do the work to educate ourselves and be a part of the change our workplaces need. Okay, pause, stop. The change your workplaces need is for people to focus on their actual job. None of this is going to lead to a better workplace. None of it's going to lead to a positive workplace climate. None of it is going to lead to increased employee engagement, increased productivity, or any of the things that workplaces should actually be worried about. And this is why I'm not taking a full break from doing the workplace stuff, but I'm taking a little bit of a breather, because the idea that engaging your employees in struggle sessions day after day after day after day, and organizations are spending tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, in some cases millions of dollars on this nonsense, it absolutely blows my mind, and it really pisses me off, and it ruins my flipping zen, okay? This is why I'm complaining on YouTube so much, to get it out of my system, because these people are nuts. Let's keep going. He's got a few highlighted components from some of the documents. He does have all the documents available on his website. I will link that in the description below so you guys can go and see them for yourself. But here's one bullet point that is particularly egregious. Culturally competent professionals accept responsibility for their own racism. No. Bad. Bad, City of Seattle. Bad. This is ridiculous. You're saying in order for a white person to be a competent professional, they have to admit that they're racist? I'm sorry, what? How in the world is this going to lead to any positive change for anyone? Spoiler alert, it's not. They must accept responsibility for their own racism, sexism, heterosexism, etc. I don't even know what that word means, and I'm going to I suppose I could probably guess what it means, but you probably don't know what it means either. And attempts to deal with them in a non-defensive, guilt-free manner. Yes, because when you're admitting you're a racist, it is always a guilt-free process. These people are nuts. They have begun the process of defining a new, non-oppressive and non-exploitive attitude. In terms of racism, for example, addressing one's whiteness, e.g. white privilege, is crucial for effective teaching. No, it's not. No, it's not. Not in any way, shape, or form. And moving on. Act as a role model, take risks, and question the white power structure. All right, King County prosecutor, nothing could go wrong with this plan. Let's keep going. The King County Library System hired a private firm to conduct racially segregated listening sessions to root out institutional privileges and systemic inequities embedded in the current socio-political conditions. They claim to have found widespread institutional racism. Even money, they don't say what that institutional racism is, but let's just take a quick look. We begin with an anti-oppressive framework vital to the developing of in-depth analysis of how racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, and xenophobia become institutionalized and embedded in dominant culture. This framework helps to highlight the institutional privileges and systemic inequities embedded in the current socio-political conditions that influence and affect our institutions. Through our cross-racial lens, we purposefully and strategically confront the internalized and institutionalized power of race and racism. Do any of you have any idea what that means? That's purposeful. They use big words and say an awful lot of them and throw them into a nice little word salad so you have no flipping idea what they mean. That means nothing right there. They have not proven one GD thing. All they've done is taken a lot of little buzzwords, thrown them in, and jumbled them up so that they deliver something that sounds really academic and authoritative but doesn't actually mean anything. Reason for racial identity groups for listening. We want staff of all racial identities to have delegates of the same racial identity to speak with and gather responses for the listening sessions to increase accessibility and authenticity. We facilitate these discussions separately to try to mitigate harm to people of color during this process. Because if people of color can't talk with employees that are not the same color of them, that's obviously going to make things much more authentic. It's obviously also, by the way, P.S., one of the true types of diversity training that I like to engage in is around diversity of communication, diversity of approach, because that is true regardless of what race you are, what gender you are. These things exist outside of those paradigms, and we have millions of data points to tell us that your race, your gender, your sexual orientation, all those things, they don't actually contribute to how you communicate at work, what your style is at work, what your approach is at work, all of those things. And so you can actually do training around diversity in organizations, but you have to do it in a way that looks at all the different attributes of diversity to include diversity of approach, diversity of work style, because those things actually make the difference in terms of teams being collaborative and being able to work together effectively. That's actually what drives productivity. And again, we've got a boat metric F ton of data points to back that up. That's not what they're doing here. They're saying only go with people like you and have conversations, and that's how we're going to create more productive and inclusive work environments. No, it's not going to work out that way. It's just going to create more tension. It's going to reduce psychological safety, all that good stuff. Not going to lead to anything good for the people that are actually implementing these policies. I digress. Let's keep going. We understand that these discussions can be difficult for everyone. We will allow space to set a foundation for work going forward. And by the way, when you're doing these trainings and these facilitations and you basically engage in a struggle session, that doesn't do good for anyone. These conversations should not be difficult. That's not going to help anyone come together and create a more common understanding. It just doesn't work like that. All right. The Veterans Administration, Puget Sound, is now hosting racially segregated caucuses for employees labeled white, Black, and people of color. These segregated trainings are still in operation in direct violation of the president's recent executive order. And he's got that clearly outlined right here in black and white, no question about it. The organizer of the sessions initially felt uncomfortable suggesting as a white person what he perceived at the time to be segregation. Oh, because apparently white people perceive segregation when it's not actually segregation. Do tell. But he moved forward because it can be challenging for people of color to feel a burden to educate others on how to be better. This is an email. Hi all. As we continue to work to consider how our environment needs to address racism and better promote diversity, equity, and inclusion, a best practice to consider is that of caucuses designed to provide a space for sharing for individuals with similar racial backgrounds, because that is the only thing that matters. I will admit that when I originally considered this idea, I felt uncomfortable suggesting as a white person what I perceived at the time to be segregation. Thinking more about this, however, I see more of what others have recommended, which is that this forum can provide an environment for sharing and discussion, which is not afforded by mixed groups. I'm sorry, what? You're basically admitting that you've developed no psychological safety in your organizations, and you think that struggle sessions and segregations are a way to get around the fact that you've developed no psychological safety in your organization? Psychological safety, by the way, guys, is just a fancy way of saying trust, and it is one of the key drivers of team productivity and engagement. End of the day. It can be challenging for people of color to feel a burden to educate others on how to be better. when at the same time being told they're expected to be entirely open and unfiltered when they may or may not feel comfortable doing that. There is something to be gained for allowing for a discussion of members of a dominant culture to consider how to be better, using their power and privilege to change the environment. The irony is cutting. Seattle's white elites are reviving the shameful policy of racial segregation in the name of social justice. The underlying assumption of these policies, that white leaders must shield minorities from open dialogue, is deeply patronizing and divisive. I couldn't have said it better for myself. That, honestly, like, this email, that's incredibly racist right there. That is incredibly racist. And Chris is getting right to the heart of the matter. But we do have an epilogue here. We have a good epilogue. He just tweeted this out this morning. He says, update. I can confirm that the Office of Special Counsel has opened a file for investigating the racially segregated programs of the Veterans Affairs of Puget Sound facility. Racial segregation is against the law, and I will fight against these programs with all of my power. Thank you, Chris Rufo. You are a true American hero. Guys, if you are not following Chris on Twitter, he tweets updates like this all the time. I do try to highlight them when I can because I think that Chris's work is so important, and you know, he's doing some of the best work in this area, and I think it's important that we keep on top of it. We know what's happening in our governments. We know what's happening in organizations that are getting taxpayer money to be able to do segregated training with their employees, to teach their employees that they're racist, to sign a pledge confirming that they will confront their inherent racism. If you don't think this is bat-ass insane, dude, I just don't know what to tell you. All right, guys, that's all I've got for right now. I'll see you soon.